imports are looking very vulnerable if that is a function of the continued economic stress in China. 1.1% expansion is what the Reuters poll has. Could we be looking at a contraction in the months to come, Hui Shan?
Yeah, for imports, you're right, especially when you look at volume terms, the actual amount of goods and Chinese consumers and businesses importing. The NBS data showing about 7 to 8% year-on-year contraction, just the volume terms. So even at a higher prices, you're getting only single-digit growth in the import front. We're expecting 5% increase in imports in the month of August, mainly because of a working day. In August was higher than last year. But that said, the bigger picture is that imports are very weak. There are structural drivers, but I think on the cyclical front, domestic demand is very weak. And with zero COVID policy and a property slowdown, consumption is the sector that being hurt the most. So it's not so surprising to see a much weaker import number versus export number. And ironically, this is going to translate into a pretty strong trade surplus yet again.
Yeah. Hui Shan, I want to pick up on what you've just said. We were talking to a guest yesterday about the marriage slump leading to a structural decline in housing demand. Of course, that has a lot to do with the falling birth rate, of course. We also have youth unemployment at a record high. When you talk about sort of the structural drags on the economy right now, rather than the sort of cyclical ones in nature, what must the government do and the policymakers do now to address some of those challenges?
Yeah, it is tough. I think on the, for example, marriage rate and birth rates, there are multi-decade trend ongoing. I think demographers, even with a very strong dose of policy support, do not expect a reversal of the falling birth rate and perhaps even the falling marriage rate. These are just sort of the train has already left the station, and this is a trend that's likely to continue. But in terms of what the government can do, I mean, you look at the latest news, they are trying to make some adjustment, whether it's women's labor force protection and thinking about all the costs for parents, medical education, housing, all these things that they are trying to do adjustment to encourage perhaps a slower decline in birth rate. But end of the day, I think this is something, China growth is likely to slow in the coming years. Along that declining growth rate trend, you're going to have cyclical up and downs.